With the San Francisco 49ers down in Inglewood getting ready to take on the Los Angeles Chargers in their second preseason game of the preseason, what should 49ers fans have their eyes on during Thursday night's game? We'll talk about all that and more next.
No, we still faithful. I'ma put it all on the table. We forever faithful. Yeah, we still faithful.
What's going on, 49er faithful? You are tuned in to Keeping the Faith here on this Wednesday, August the 19th, 2026. I'm JD. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We are just 24 hours away from the 49ers' second game of the preseason as they get set to take on the Los Angeles Chargers down at SoFi Stadium. The two teams had already tussled in Tuesday's joint practice, which we all know didn't go so hot for the 49ers, but the real thing, or as real as it can get in the preseason, happens on Thursday. So for all intents and purposes here on tonight's live stream, I want to get into what I think 49ers fans should have their eyes on in Thursday night's game on offense, defense, etc., because there are plenty of areas that 49ers fans should be locked in on. A lot of interesting storylines and subplots, and a lot of young up-and-coming players that will be looking to make their mark in their young careers in the second preseason game. And so tonight we're going to go ahead and get into that. I do want to kind of give my thoughts on which players I'm keeping an eye on and who I believe you should be keeping an eye on as well. And then we have some news and notes and things that we will get to at the tail end of the show. But before we get started quickly, let me just say, if you would like behind the scenes access, bonus content that you won't get anywhere else, if you want to be a part of exclusive live streams, exclusive call-in shows, if you want to be involved in giveaways, hey, if you want a KTF channel logo sticker pack, the quickest way you can get all those things is by clicking the join button down below, signing up to become a channel member today. We have 3 separate membership tiers to choose from. Read through each of them and select the one that most interests you. You help support the channel, and you also get something out of it too. And with football season right around the corner, we have a lot planned for our channel members. So take a look, click the join button below to learn more. Also, throughout the course of the stream this evening, if you would like to help support the channel, but not just that, if you want to make sure that your question or comment gets responded to here on the live show, you can go ahead and drop us a super chat down below. Those get priority response and reaction. We will read and react to every single super chat that we receive throughout the course of the stream. Also, I highly encourage everyone who is watching this live to participate in our live chat section. It's what I like to call the show within the show. You guys do a great job, the Niner fans, of having your own banter, your own conversations, asking questions, engaging in the topics of the show. And I always look forward to reading all of your chats and responding to them. A big part of the show is the interactive part. So I encourage everybody to participate in our live chat section. I do see my guy Joel Figueroa, channel member, chiming in. What up, Joel? Good to see you, my guy, as always. But let's just jump right into it, because we have a lot to get to here tonight with the Niners getting set to take on the Chargers basically about 24 hours from now. The game is scheduled for 7 p.m. Pacific time on Thursday, a late start. But hey, it's Niner football. We're not going to miss it, right? So here on tonight's show, like I mentioned, I want to talk about what I feel 49ers fans should have their eyes on, or who 49ers fans should have their eyes on. I have, my perspective, my opinions on the who, what, when, where in tomorrow night's game. And I feel like Niners fans, this is where they should be focused during the game, because I think these are the most important aspects of tomorrow night's game to pay attention to. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. And I think I think the low-hanging fruit, I would say the easiest one to pick out is the debut of Kalon Black, the 49ers rookie running back out of Indiana. Missed the last couple of weeks of camp due to an adductor injury, which in layman's terms is a groin. But he did return to practice earlier this week and participated in the 49ers and Chargers joint practice on Tuesday. And by all accounts, looked like he had fresh legs, was breaking off some chunk runs, and in the words of a couple beat writers, looked like a guy who hadn't missed any time. Kind of picked up where he left off. Kalon Black looked impressive in his first action against another NFL team in that joint practice on Tuesday. And so one would assume Kalon Black will be suiting up and making his 49ers debut on Thursday, albeit in a preseason game. But with the rash of injuries that the 49ers have had at the running back position throughout the course of camp, I think all eyes will be on Kalon Black and how he performs in his first NFL action on Thursday. Can he solidify himself as that complementary option to Christian McCaffrey? Jordan James is still out of the lineup dealing with the broken rib that he sustained earlier in camp. So Kalon Black has a prime opportunity to reestablish himself. He was making a name for himself early in camp prior to being injured. But now with Jordan James still out of the lineup and Kalon Black set to make his 49ers debut, he has quite the opportunity to grab a hold of the 49ers RB2 job. And so I would say Kalon Black is possibly at the tops of every 49ers fans list in terms of who they're going to be paying attention to during Thursday night's game. I'm looking forward to seeing what the tough 25-year-old former Indiana Hoosier can do. Physical runner, explosive runner, strong. His blitz pickup is something to marvel at. He's very good in pass protection, blitz pickup. And the underrated part of his game, as has been discussed all offseason long, are his hands. I want to see Kalon Black maybe catch a pass or two out of the backfield, display those hands that have been discussed ad nauseum throughout the course of the offseason as to whether or not he has any hands. But people refuse to go back and look at his film when he was at James Madison. However, with the Niners getting ready to take on the Chargers Thursday, it's going to be, the masses' first opportunity to see Kalon Black in a Niner uniform and see what he can do. I am looking forward to probably seeing Kalon Black on Thursday more than anyone because he missed that first preseason game against the Titans last week as he was still rehabbing from his injury. But Kalon Black appears to be ready to go and will be putting on a 49er game day uniform for the first time in his career. So looking forward to seeing what Kalon Black can do in that game. Next on my list of offensive areas of importance, areas of focus that myself and other 49ers fans should be locked in on Thursday. How does Brock Purdy look connecting with some of his new wide receivers? Kyle Shanahan said that a strong number of 49ers starters figure to be playing on Thursday. That includes quarterback Brock Purdy. And this will be the first game action between Brock Purdy and potentially his number one and number two wide receivers this year for the first time. Mike Evans being the 49ers free agent acquisition and solidified number one at this point, but he came up a little lame early in Tuesday's joint practice against the Chargers, had an ice pack wrapped around his ankle, and then later was seen icing his quad. So it remains to be seen if Mike Evans will be suiting up for this game. I would venture to think they'll probably play it safe, and we won't see Mike Evans on Thursday. But I'm just speaking out loud. We'll have to wait and see what the inactive list looks like prior to Thursday's game. And then you have second-round rookie Dejon Stribling. Brock Purdy and Stribling have been connecting all training camp long, but tomorrow's going to be the first time in game action that we see Purdy being able to throw to number 15. And I want to see what that rapport looks like in game. We saw what Stribling did in his 49ers debut last week, but let's see what he can do this week and how Brock Purdy can get him the ball. Let's see if Purdy can get Stribling the ball in space to where Stribling can, exploit that yards after the catch ability that he has and make some plays. I'm looking forward to seeing what Stribling looks like with a quarterback the likes of Brock Purdy getting him the ball. That ties in directly to my number 3 or my third on my list of offensive areas of focus for Thursday night's game. Dejon Stribling. What can he do for an encore? It took Dejon Stribling all of one half of preseason action for 49ers fans to fall in love with the second-round rookie, and he put together a heck of a performance against the Titans on Thursday. 7 receptions, 63 yards, had the leaping back shoulder play along the right sideline for about 32 yards, I believe it was, during Thursday's game, showing Niner fans a glimpse of what's to come. And so what does it look like for Stribling in his second game? Can he do anything to top what he did in that first performance that has captured the attention of 49ers fans everywhere? I would imagine that Purdy will go to Stribling early and often, especially since Purdy figures to not play much more than a series in this game. And I think that Purdy's going to want to establish the rapport with Stribling early and often in this contest. And I think Niners fans should be getting excited for a repeat performance of what we saw a week ago, because every single time Dejon Stribling's been on the field, whether it's a training camp practice or a preseason game, Stribling has showed up and made plays. He has made plays every single time he's laced up a pair of cleats and put on a 49er helmet. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do for an encore, especially considering he'll have Brock Purdy throwing to him at least for a little bit in Thursday's second preseason game. Next on my list of what I'm looking forward to and what 49ers fans should be focused in on, Carver Willis at left guard. All of a sudden, with Dominic Pooney out of practice with a concussion, you're seeing Robert Jones shifting from left guard to right guard, resulting in rookie Carver Willis taking a ton of meaningful snaps in practice as of late at left guard. So I would imagine Carver Willis will end up lining up with the starters on Thursday, as he has been the second string left guard as of late, after Connor Colby has been kind of demoted to swing guard duty between right guard and left guard, primarily working with the second and third team. And with the shuffling along the 49ers offensive line, I would expect Carver Willis to get a ton of run early in this game, and I want to see what Carver Willis looks like playing with the starters. Now, does Trent Williams play on Thursday, and does Carver Willis get his chance to line up next to him in real game action? That remains to be seen. I don't think we need to see Trent Williams in any preseason action, but I do want to see what Carver Willis looks like with the starters, protecting Brock Purdy, helping solidify the ground game for Kalon Black on Thursday. What does the rookie have in store in his first real significant game action, considering you're going to have the starters out there? Well, I want to see what he can do. And then last on my list of offensive areas to hone in on, what do some of the receivers on the back end of the depth chart look like? Jordan Watkins, Will Pauling, Wesley Grimes. What do they look like in this game? Jordan Watkins put together probably his best game as a 49er last week in that Titans preseason game and played well into the second half of that game. And then you had Will Pauling, Wesley Grimes. Those guys, showed flashes of their athleticism, their speed, their game-breaking ability. I want to see what kind of shakes out there at the back end of the Niners depth chart, because there's been a ton of conversation as to how many receivers this team keeps, whether or not they keep certain guys like Demarcus Robinson and Christian Kirk. Do Will Pauling and Wesley Grimes both make it? Who gets relegated to the practice squad? Where does Jacob Cowing fit in this whole equation? And Jordan Watkins, like I said, put together probably his most impressive performance in a Niner uniform last week. So what can he do to further solidify his spot on the wide receiver depth chart in this game? Looking forward to seeing what the other young burners at wideout can do on Thursday. Look, real quick, let's take a couple comments from the chat before we carry on to the defensive side of things. My guy Joel Figueroa says Deshaun Stribling was balling last week against the Tennessee Titans. This week, hopefully, he catches a touchdown against those Chargers tomorrow. Well, on Tuesday, during joint practice, Deshaun Stribling did manage to haul in 2 touchdowns in red zone drills, one from Brock Purdy, one from Mac Jones. So he's already shown the ability to get busy in the end zone against the Chargers. Let's see if it carries over into game action. Looking forward to that for sure. Shout out my guy Fazil for checking in. It's all good, Fazil. Hope you're all good as well. Thank you for chiming in, my friend. Let's move on to the defensive side of Thursday night's game and what I'm looking forward to seeing and what 49ers fans should be looking forward to seeing. First things first, this is more than likely going to be our first glimpse at prized free agent acquisition Osa Odigizua in a 49er uniform. You've heard all training camp long about how he has been wrecking shop in opposing backfields, whether it's the Niners backfield or the Chargers backfield. Osa Odigizua has been a one-man wrecking crew on the interior of the 49ers defensive line. And if the majority of the starters are playing, I would imagine we're going to get our first glimpse at Osa Odigizua on Thursday, maybe for a series. It probably won't be that long, but I want to see what number 92, what he looks like in real game action. It's one thing to show out in practice. It's another thing to carry it over into a game when you're in a stadium full of people and all the eyes are on you. It's a little bit different, but all of the reviews that we have heard all offseason long have been that Osa Odigizua has been arguably the 49ers' best defensive lineman and is poised for an absolute breakout season. And Thursday will be our first opportunity to set our eyes on Osa. Next on my list of defensive areas of emphasis, do Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw suit up? Look, I know it's a preseason game and you're more focused on the young guys, but this is going to be our first opportunity as 49ers fans to see 5'4" and 5'7" lined up out there next to each other in over a year since Dre Greenlaw left the Niners following the 2024 season and went to Denver for 2025. But here we are in this preseason game on Thursday with the majority of the starters figuring to get their first game action. I want to see Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, just even if it's just for a snap. I want to see them lined up out there next to each other. How does it look? How does the communication? How fired up are those guys? I know it doesn't really mean much of anything in the context of a game, but considering it's our first opportunity to see them line up together in a game action, I'm looking forward to it. What could I say? I'm a sucker for that kind of sentimental stuff. Big fan of those two together and looking forward to seeing them line up. Whether it's, Thursday or week one, we'll see. It's coming either way, but would be nice to see them lined up tomorrow, at least for a series. Next on my list, though, we're going to start getting into a lot of these young guys. A ton more areas of emphasis for me on the defensive side of the ball in this game. And you got to go with Romello Height. He had a lackluster first game in a 49er jersey last week against the Titans, to put it lightly. He did not put together a good showing. Was on his back more than he was on his feet, seemingly. Didn't really make much of an impact in his first game. The physicality seemed to bug him a little bit. He seemed to be a little bit too light in the pants to kind of handle NFL action, but it's one game. You can't write him off, especially considering the Niners figure to be relying on him this year to supply a burst off the edge in a big way. And him being 25 years old, I mean, there's no training wheels here. Romello Height has to look good immediately. There is no chance of redshirting this guy or waiting to see what he looks like in 2027. Romello Height's already 25. He needs to go out there and look good now. And so after putting together what was, a rough bunch of clips on film last week, What does Romello Height look like in his second chance to make a first impression? Can Romello Height go out there and put some pressure on Justin Herbert or former 49ers quarterback Trey Lance? What does Romello Height look like in his second game action? What adjustments has he made to his game since last week? What did he see on film that he's been able to correct since last week? I would say that as far as all the young guys go, I think most people will have their eyes on Romello Height and what he can do in his second game of NFL action. Next on the list, Ephesians Prysock. I am probably more excited to see Ephesians Prysock than most players on defense on Thursday. The long, rangy 6'4" corner out of Washington really showed out in his first NFL action, including shutting out Carnell Tate early on in that game last week. Recording a PBU in the end zone against the 4th overall pick, Carnell Tate. He really looked impressive. And I know it's early, but the Niners may have got themselves one in the 4th round pick out of Washington. The former Husky is intriguing to say the least. I'm not gonna get too ahead of myself, but I really liked what I saw. And a guy with his physical traits and his speed and athleticism, it's rare. And if the Niners can harness that and make this guy into a future starter, I mean, look out. He's got some special tools. So anytime he's on the field, he just stands out to me. His arms, he can basically tie his shoes standing straight up. That's how long his arms are. His speed is excellent for a guy his size. His fluidity, he can turn, and flip his hips and run with receivers. I really liked what I saw from Prysock in his first game, and I want to see what he can do Thursday. Next on the list, Jaden Duggar. Now, he flashed in his first game against the Titans last week. He was all over the field, played a lot of Mike. They moved him around. He had that one spectacular play where Cam Ward tried to get out towards the sideline and take off, but Jaden Duggar was having none of it and ran basically out of the frame of the camera, sprinted into frame and took down Cam Ward before he can get any sort of a sizable gain. He flashed in his first game, and his athleticism, similar to Prysock, really shows up on TV. A guy that big, that long, that fast, they pop on TV. And Jaden Duggar is a player that you've been hearing who's been talked up all camp long, all off season long. How does Raheem Morris deploy him in this game? Will we see him rush the passer a little bit more? Will he line up at Mike linebacker like he did in last week's game? Do they kind of simplify what they want him to do? I feel like they're throwing a ton at him right now, and I would like to see them kind of let him settle in to one role, one spot. Let's see what he's great at before we figure out if he's good at everything. I want to know, where is he great at? And I'm curious to see how they deployed Jaden Duggar in this game. I'm hoping he can play that fever backer role, that big nickel star, whatever you want to call it. That's where I think he should be playing. That's what I want to see from him. And then, those occasions where you want to go to 5 down fronts, move him down to the line of scrimmage and have him rush off the edge. That's how I want to see them use Jaden Duggar. But we'll see what happens. I'm curious to see what Raheem Morris does with Duggar in the second go-around. Next on my list of defensive areas of focus for Thursday night's second preseason game against the Los Angeles Chargers down at SoFi Stadium. Larry Wirt III, 6'4", 220 pounds, another huge athletic guy who has shown the ability thus far to kind of eliminate tight ends in coverage. He's got some Nicky Manwari size and coverage ability to him, taking on, big tight ends and whatnot. Can he continue to flash as another big nickel option in this Raheem Morris defense? Also, can he continue to have success as a blitzer? He looked good as a blitzer in last week's game. I'm another guy I'm highly intrigued to see how he performs in his second NFL action or his second game of NFL action with the Niners. Next on my list, unfortunately, we won't see Grayson Halton in Thursday night's game after his impressive debut last week. He is dealing with what was the injury? I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was an ankle sprain. I could be mistaken. I believe it's an ankle sprain for Grayson Halton. Somebody correct me in the chat. But we're not going to see Grayson Halton on Thursday night. So what that means is you're going to see a ton of a pair of undrafted rookie free agents in James Thompson III and Bryson Eason, both of whom did some nice things last week against the Titans. James Thompson's strength is out of this world. His hands are strong and violent, and I want to see what he can do with some extended playing time. You're not going to see Grayson Halton in this game, so I would imagine you're going to see a ton of Thompson and Eason together. Now, of course, you do have Oso Odighizuwa, who I mentioned earlier, and then Alfred Collins, who is the next player on my list of where I'm going to be focused in on. What does Alfred Collins do in his second game of the preseason? Because his first game of the preseason was not pretty. He was getting moved off of his spot, pushed backwards. A guy that size should not be getting pushed around the way that he was a week ago. Now, I want to give him grace considering he's coming off of off-season shoulder surgery, and he didn't get back out onto the field until the second week of camp after missing basically the entire offseason while rehabbing from that shoulder injury. So I'm not by any means like throwing Alfred Collins to the side. But I do want to see what does it look like for Collins in this game on Thursday night. Will he be able to go out there and put together, some more impressive tape than he did last week? Because last week was just it was bad. It was bad, and no real other way to put it. Can Collins go out there and assert himself and show the size and strength that he showed late in the season last year? Really, especially considering that Alfred Collins and Oso Odighizuwa are pretty much penciled in as the starters for week 1 in Australia. I want to see Alfred Collins take that next step. Does he look a little better? Does his, conditioning look a little bit better? Can he, hold his gap? Like I'm hoping that Alfred Collins can put together a much stronger game than he did a week ago. And then last on my list of defensive areas that I'm honed in on for Thursday night's game. Does the defense come out with a chip on their shoulder? Because, to put it mildly, the Niners got punked on Tuesday in the joint practice against the Chargers. They got absolutely punked. I mean, you heard all the statistics getting floated out there. Oh, Justin Herbert threw 11 touchdowns against the Niners defense. And you saw all the videos, getting circulated on social media of the bombs getting thrown all over the field. You saw Amari Hampton, the Chargers running back, trucking Jair Brown. He also reportedly trucked Jaden Duggar in Tuesday's practice. Do the Niners come out a little scrappy, a little fired up, with a chip on their shoulder in this game? Will they play with a sense of pride after kind of getting their teeth, knocked in on Tuesday? I'm kind of wondering if this game gets a little chippy, gets a little feisty early. Will there be some extracurricular activities after the whistle early in this game? Because the Niners have been seeing all of it. We're not the only ones who pay attention to stuff on Twitter and Instagram. All the Niners players and coaches do too. So they've been hearing all the noise since Tuesday. I'm sure they're going into tomorrow night's game pissed off. And so I want to see the defense come out there with something that more closely resembles the physicality that they played with against the Titans compared to what we saw in Tuesday's joint practice against the Chargers. I have a weird feeling that this game on Thursday night is going to get chippy early. Just don't be shocked if you see a couple dust ups, or I'm not going to say fights, but I think things can get a little feisty on Thursday night early in that game. Just a hunch, because I think the Niners have seen and heard it all the last 48 hours. So looking forward to seeing the Niners getting back out there and asserting themselves Thursday night. All right. That was my areas of focus for not only myself, but what I think 49ers fans should be paying attention to on Thursday night's game against the Chargers. You guys can always chime in our live chat section. Let me know who you're going to be paying attention to in Thursday night's game. What has your attention against the Chargers? Who do you want to see show up and show out in the second preseason game of the summer for the 49ers? You guys can always drop your takes in our live chat as well. But aside from that, I do have a couple other topics that I want to get to here tonight, because earlier today, the news came down from Adam Schefter of ESPN that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers agreed to terms with Vita Vea on a 1-year, $30 million contract extension that ties him into Tampa Bay for the next 2 seasons. And they also tacked on an additional $6 million to his existing deal for 2026. Now, Vita Vea was a very popular name amongst 49ers fans in recent weeks in terms of a potential trade target for the 49ers. Vita Vea, of course, grew up in Milpitas, a stone's throw away from Levi Stadium, would have certainly helped the 49ers in the run game. And he provides, a little bit more in the pass rush game than you would expect for a guy his size at 350 pounds. But we talked about it. We talked about it on Tuesday night. I didn't think they were going to trade Vita Vea. It didn't seem that way. It all kind of seemed like a leverage ploy coming from Vita Vea's camp. And I mean, lo and behold, look what happened. When push came to shove, they worked it out and figured out the deal. So you can take that one off the table, Niner fans. Unfortunately, Vita Vea will not be coming to the San Francisco 49ers after agreeing to that new deal with Tampa Bay. And I didn't really see the Niners as serious contenders in the Vita Vea sweepstakes anyway. The Niners have over $70 million in cap space right now, and they haven't done anything with it. And this team has some glaring holes on the roster, and yet they are sitting on their hands with all that cap space. They are hoarding that cap space like it's, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but they're hoarding the hell out of that cap space. And I think that the Niners know they could have used a guy like Vita Vea, and yet didn't happen. I not only do I think that the Bucs weren't going to trade him, and obviously they didn't. I don't think the Niners have positioned themselves to acquire a guy like Vita Vea, considering the cap situation in the coming years. They're holding on to the majority of this existing cap space that they have to carry over into the coming years because they need it in a big time way. So I didn't see it happening. I didn't think it was realistic. And not only that, I mean, realistically, looking at the 49ers defensive tackle room, they actually have a lot of guys that I think the Niners want to see how all that kind of pans out. They have some talent, some serious talent at defensive tackle. We've already talked about Oso Odigizua. Alfred Collins going into his second year after, having an up and down season as a rookie a year ago. CJ West, same thing. Both those guys, second round pick for Collins in 2025, fourth round pick for CJ West in 2025. They want to see if those guys can blossom in their second year, if they take the next step. And then you add in Grayson Halton in this year's draft, who put together an amazing game last week against the Titans in his first game action in the Niner uniform. James Thompson James Thompson Jr. and Bryson Eason, guys that the Niners are very, very intrigued by. And then Sebastian Valdez showed up and showed out last week against the Titans. So really, this defensive tackle room is not that thin. I like what the Niners have at defensive tackle. And instead of sacrificing your cap space and giving up precious, draft picks for a 2027 draft that figures to be historic in a lot of ways. I would rather kind of see what they have with the guys that are already in-house because they've got some talent. Don't sleep on the Niners defensive tackle room. I mean, I know everyone wanted Vita Vea. Don't get me wrong. I talked about it on Tuesday. If they traded for Vita Vea, I would be excited. I'd hop on here and be hyped up. But I'm also pretty excited about the guys they already have. And I want to see how that plays out. So just keep that in mind if you're disappointed about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers agreeing to terms with Vita Vea on a 1-year contract extension, effectively ending any trade speculation of Vita Vea returning to the Bay. So I know Niner fans were, kind of waiting to see what shook out there in Tampa, but Vita Vea is not getting traded any longer. And then I do see you guys chiming in the chat. I'll get to your questions and comments here in a moment. But I do have one more topic I want to get to. And I think it's safe to say after last week's game against the Titans and after this joint practice on Tuesday against the Chargers, I think we can definitively say there are some areas of concern on this roster. I'm not hitting the panic button like some people, but I'm also not naive enough to know that the Niners could use some help in a couple spots. Mainly left guard, safety, and edge rusher. They need to address those positions because nothing is solidified in those spots. At left guard, you've got 2.5 guys competing for the left guard spot. Robert Jones, Carver Willis, with, I guess, a smattering of Connor Colby, even though it seems like they've kind of written him off in recent weeks. And then at safety, you have Jair Brown and Marquise Siegel. Jair Brown's had an up and down camp. Marquise Siegel has looked good, but has he really looked great? I think that's up for debate. And then Malik Mustafa, we haven't seen him in a number of weeks since he suffered a hamstring pull. So the Niners could obviously use an upgrade at safety if one became available, and then at edge rusher. Now, without Nick Bosa, without Mykel Williams, things don't look good at edge rusher for this team. Keon White, Sam Okawanu, Romello Height, like those, I have concerns. I have concerns about the depth at edge rusher, and considering both Nick Bosa and Mykel Williams are coming off torn ACLs, I think the Niners could absolutely afford to go out and get another edge rusher. I think it's malpractice if they don't at least kick the tires on that spot, because we saw what a Niner defense looked like last year without a pass rush. And we know how dependent this defense is on Nick Bosa being Nick Bosa, but coming off of his third ACL tear of his football career, the second in that right knee, I have concerns about the long-term viability of Nick Bosa this year. I got to see him hold up. I got to see it before I can count on it. You know what I mean? I just have concerns about this pass rush based on recent events. And so I've put together a list of players that I think the Niners should absolutely kick the tires on. Most of these names you guys have already heard, but I wanted to talk about this tonight because I think it's becoming quickly apparent that this team needs to make a move of some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? They need to make a move of substance. They need to do something, because I think it's clear as day they could use an upgrade at any of those three spots that I mentioned: left guard, safety, and pass rusher. First name on my list, and I like I said, I put together a list of guys, and most of them you've already heard or they've already been discussed, but here we are in August, and things have not seemingly solidified themselves. So at safety, I mean, you got to call Atlanta about Jesse Bates. If you're the 49ers, you have to be on the phone for Jesse Bates right now. The Niners don't have enough at safety. They don't. And Malik Mustafa, if and when he does come back, He's a guy who's dealt with injuries already in his young career. He's a guy who seemingly has trouble staying healthy. I'm wondering if Malik Mustafa's muscular frame is hindering him at the NFL level, because he's trying to do things athletically that a guy that is as rocked up as he is at safety typically can't do. And you're seeing his lower body break down. He's already retore that ACL that he tore in college at the end of his rookie year. And then now here we are with a hamstring pull. I think Malik Mustafa might be a little bit too rocked up to be a roaming free safety sprinting around making plays. And if I'm the 49ers, I call the Falcons about Jesse Bates. I know he recently said that he wants to retire a Falcon and all this and that, but you got to look at it like this. If the Atlanta Falcons are not going anywhere this year, and judging off of their first preseason game performance, it doesn't look like they are based on their quarterback position. It looks like the Falcons could very well be out of it and tanking for Arch Manning by Halloween. I think there's a realistic possibility that Jesse Bates becomes available by the trade deadline. And if I'm the 49ers, I mean, you have to factor in the Raheem Morris connection. Raheem Morris was there in Atlanta with Jesse Bates. And Bates is also in the last year of his contract. And the Niners would be taking on the last year of his deal at age 29 for $13 million this year. But I think if he becomes available, the Niners simply cannot sit on their hands. They have to go after Jesse Bates. And it would be nice if they could figure something out at safety prior to week 1, but I think it might take, a couple of rough outings from their safety room for the Niners to go, okay, all right, maybe Marquise Siegel isn't it. All right, Jair Brown, we tried. You're not it. Malik Mustafa, we like you, but can you stay healthy? Like, I'm hoping the Niners can pull the trigger on a safety move sooner rather than later. And Jesse Bates is obviously at the top of everyone's list. Next on my list of players that I think the Niners should kick the tires on, New York Giants edge rusher Kayvon Thibodeau. I think he would fit in this scheme. He's in the last year of his rookie deal, and the Giants have an abundance of pass rushers. Abdul Carter, Arvell Reese, Brian Burns. And with Kayvon Thibodeau in the last year of his rookie deal, it is highly unlikely that they re-sign him. He's going to hit the open market next year and cash in free agency. But if I'm the 49ers, maybe I try and get in on the Kayvon Thibodeau sweepstakes somewhere between now and the trade deadline, because I think he's going to be made available. You can only have so many edge rushers on the field at once. And he's already been the subject of trade talks virtually this entire offseason with a new head coach there in John Harbaugh. He's going to want to play his guys as opposed to guys that have already been there. So I could see the Giants potentially trading Kayvon Thibodeau. And if I'm the 49ers, I make that call because, again, Micah Williams, Nick Bosa coming off torn ACLs, Romello Height leaving much to be desired after his first preseason game. I think the Niners need help at edge in a big way. I think they need to go out and take a swing. I do. I think they need to take a swing. And speaking of taking a swing, the biggest swing that they could take at edge rusher is pretty obvious. It's a name that's been talked about, linked to the Niners for a while now, and that's Max Crosby. He already was traded to the Baltimore Ravens earlier this offseason before that deal got nixed due to a failed physical. The Ravens getting cold feet in the deal. And Max Crosby has reverted back to Las Vegas. And it says that he wants to be a Raider, that he's a Raider. He doesn't want to go anywhere. But if the Raiders come out early and they struggle and they don't look good, I mean, what is the object of, a team when you get a new head coach, a new young quarterback? You want to surround him, the young quarterback, with as much talent as you can. You want to kind of blow things up, obtain a ton of draft capital so that you can continue to build around your young quarterback in years to come. And what is the Raiders' one big-time blue-chip trade piece? And that's Max Crosby. So if the Raiders are struggling early in this season, and you have a number of teams knocking down the door of the Raiders by the trade deadline for Max Crosby services, teams that could use a pass rusher as they're trying to set themselves up for the playoff push, I could see a world that exists where Max Crosby maybe gets dealt by the deadline. And I think the Niners have already been linked to him previously. Max Crosby loves the Bay Area. We've all heard about that. So I think if I'm the 49ers, if there is any sort of inkling that Crosby has been made available, they would be foolish not to at least pick up the phone and make a call. That's all I'm saying. Don't know how realistic it is because you'd have to give up a ton of draft capital, and he's got a decent salary. But I would be making that phone call if I was John Lynch. Absolutely. And then next on my list of players the Niners should absolutely pick up the phone and call. What's going on with Joey Bosa? I mean, all offseason you heard about, Joey's coming to the Bay to reunite with his brother. And then you had Nick Bosa kind of put the kibosh on all that recently in an interview on KBR, saying that it sounds like Joey's probably not going to play this year. He just got married this offseason, yada, yada, yada. But if the 49ers came calling between now and week one, and they said, hey, Joey, here's 13, 14, 15 million. Could Joey Bosa turn that down for a year, especially considering he's already missed basically all of training camp? All he'd have to do is get off the couch, hop on a plane, and then come play ball. Doesn't have to worry about the offseason, training camp, all of that. He hasn't filed the paperwork to be officially retired. So as far as I'm concerned, Joey Bosa is still attainable. Money talks. His brother's on the team. I think that while it may sound dead right now, I think there is a world that exists where Joey Bosa still could end up being a 49er if the 49ers come correct. So I'm not counting that one out just yet either. And then last on my list of players that I want the Niners to kick the tires on between now and week one potentially, guard Kevin Zeitler. He's still sitting out there as a free agent at age 36. In 2025, he was PFF's 13th ranked guard with a 75.4 pass blocking, or a 74.5 overall grade, which was good for 13th overall by PFF, and had a 75.4 pass blocking grade, which was 9th among all guards. He's a nasty, physical, grimy kind of guard. And I think he'd come in here and he would help this offense, line him up next to Trent Williams, let the two old guys with that old man strength go out there and beat some people up on the left side. I think the Niners could use a guy tough and physical like Kevin Zeitler, who's also been extremely healthy his entire career. I mean, it is rare when he misses a game or two during a season throughout his entire 14-year NFL career. And if I'm Kevin Zeitler, like, look, I'm 36. I'm waiting for the right opportunity. Do I really want to go through training camp? No. I was still a very effective player last year. Do I need to go through a camp? Probably not. So it wouldn't shock me if Kevin Zeitler gets some sort of an opportunity here between now and the start of the season with a team that needs help at guard. And last I checked, the 49ers could absolutely use some help at guard. So I would call up Kevin Zeitler yesterday and give him a call, because this team does not have that left guard spot figured out. You bring in Kevin Zeitler and you're good to go. You're off to the races. So there we have it, faithful. Just wanted to give you guys my thoughts on players the Niners could potentially target or should potentially target if they're looking to upgrade their roster. We also reacted to the news of the day that Vita Vea re-signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, effectively taking him out of any sort of trade speculation. And then we also went through my offensive and defensive areas of focus for the 49ers and Chargers preseason game, which takes place at 7 p.m. Pacific time on Thursday. So let me take some questions and comments, and then we can go ahead and get on out of here. I appreciate you guys who have been patient and chiming in our live chat this evening. Let's see what you guys are saying here in the chat. Let me scroll on through. Salvador says, Joey Bosa is the only person I see the 49ers might get before the trade deadline. I don't know. Nick Bosa kind of made it sound like he's essentially retired, but like I said, money talks. Money talks. Joe Figueroa, left guard, Joel Petonio. I want our Niners to get in free agency. I hope we can get him here still. He's still available. He's out there. But a lot of the speculation is that he plans to hang it up. But again, money talks for some of these older guys, man. And a lot of those older guys just don't want to, deal with training camp. So I could see some of these older guys, Kevin Zeitler, Joel Petonio, potentially agreeing to contracts after the third preseason game in that bye week before week 1. A lot of these guys don't want to deal with workouts and training camp and all that. They just want to play games. So I could see a world where some of those older guys agree to deals here in the coming weeks. Let me just scroll through the chat here. Take another couple comments before we call it a day. Andrew OP49 says, JD, are you still a season ticket holder? Andrew, I put up a video on my channel earlier this off season where I discussed that I am no longer a 49ers season ticket holder. Definitely go check out the videos on the channel. Roughly a 20-minute video where I kind of went into detail about my decision there. I am no longer a season ticket holder, unfortunately, but I do intend on going to a couple games this year for sure. But no, I'm no longer a season ticket holder. Kind of sucks to say it, but I have my reasons. Joe Figueroa says, yo, JD, a lot of those names you mentioned can help our Niners with a lot of our struggles at left guard, at free safety, and edge rusher. We have to fill those holes if we want to reach the playoffs. I mean, the Niners still have a lot of guys that are injured that they will get back. Most of the injuries on this roster are not long-term. So if this team can get healthy and stay moderately healthy throughout the course of the year, I think as currently constructed, you could definitely see this team as a playoff team. But if they want to be a serious contender and if they want to overcome some of their biggest trouble spots on this roster, then yeah, they need to make some moves. They have a lot of cap space. They have draft capital. They need to go out and do something. And as we know, with the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch regime, they are not afraid to go out and make a big move. But I think what the Niners are potentially waiting on is to see how they start the year. We know if the 49ers start the season hot and you get into late October and they're, looking like a team that's going to be, making some noise in the playoffs potentially, they are not afraid to pick up the phone and make a big deal. We've seen them do it a number of times. And I don't know if they're going to make any moves in the short term, but I definitely think if this team gets off to a hot start, that you're going to see them pull off some sort of a move by the trade deadline because the core of this roster is older. You only get so many bites at the apple, so many swings at this thing. And I think if they're in a spot where they feel like they can make a trade that helps get them over the hump this year, I firmly believe they'll do something. I do. But all right, Niner fans, thank you guys for tuning in here to this live stream. Do me a favor, make sure you like and subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a video or a live stream. And if you're catching this on replay, do me a solid. Hit the hype button. Help push out the content into the algorithm. Helps the channel more than you know. With that, we will be back possibly Thursday night after the game, although it's going to be a late night with that 7 p.m. start, and your boys got to work Friday morning. So we'll see. May potentially have to push that post-game live stream into Friday, but I will let you guys know. Hope everyone enjoys their game on Thursday night. Let's pray for no injuries. Keep your fingers crossed. And as always, let's go Niners.